Welcome. This is Leading with Spirit, the show that gives you an in-depth look at topics like what it takes to navigate your spiritual journey, how to heal yourself and grow your spiritual gifts, and balanced practices to expand your business and your spiritual leadership. I'm your host, Spirit Bird, shamanic teacher, healer, and author, here to guide you on your journey to becoming your most potent spiritual leader. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to be talking with Christine Marie here today. She's a medicine woman who brings together years of self-healing and spiritual abilities to support others in their self-healing journeys. She has one foot firmly rooted in the world of personal development and the other connected to the intuitive realms. And she actually brings together many modalities from Reiki and shamanic healing to artistry and even a background in Western medicine as a registered nurse. Has lots of beautiful offers to help you along your spiritual journey and to open up your magic, and works with a lot of different tools. So welcome, Christine.
Thank you so much.
I should ask, do you prefer to go by Christine Marie?
Christine Marie is preferred, yes.
Okay. Right after I said that, I was like, I don't think I've ever just called you Christine, but great. So I am most curious to hear about, so you do a lot of work with expression. And I am really curious to hear about what you wrote a book, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and your journey with how that all started?
Yeah. So my first published book was Breaking Free, a Self-Healing Journey. And it was a book that I knew was in me since I was a young child. And for me, honestly, writing that book was all about me stepping into my voice and my gifts as a healer. And I have, a lot of childhood trauma that has kind of prevented me from really stepping forward into my voice. And so that was kind of like the breaking free point of me being like, I'm done with self-sabotage. I'm going to step more into actually shining and sharing my light and my gifts with the world. So that, others could be supported from that gift. And it's a really interesting journey because a lot of what I share is all about really coming back to your true self after essentially distracting myself with many other things that were so out of alignment, like a previous relationship that it was a toxic and an abusive one. Like being in a job I actually didn't really fully align with, having friends that I really didn't feel like were able to connect with me on a wavelength that I felt like I embodied. So all these things in my external world were mirroring to me what was happening within, and writing Breaking Free was my liberation from all of that misalignment that I was kind of struggling with.
Mm-hmm. When you decided to write and share that with others, what was that like? Were you like really clear, or were you like, what the fuck am I doing?
All of it. I will say, like, from writing it to publishing it took me 4 years. And a lot of it was the mental blocks that were preventing me from just feeling confident enough that I had something to share. And that that even though there might be criticism or people that would judge me for my story, that it still was a gift. And I had to do a lot of mental work with limiting beliefs and all of that to move through that. So then I could actually feel ready to share it. And the night before my book launch, I was like curled up in a ball in the corner of my room, like sobbing, like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm like so afraid it's just going to be a total shit show. Like, what if nobody likes me anymore? Like all of these things. And the next day I woke up and I felt actually ready. I felt it was time. And what's really beautiful about that whole experience was once I published the book, I felt like when I went back to read it, it wasn't the same woman who wrote it anymore because I was so transformed. And that book, writing the book, was a part of the process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that led to some good things as well. tell me, I'm going to kind of skip over actually probably a lot of the journey for like, I'm curious, what do you have going? Was that what opened the door for moving into the healing work that you do?
Totally. That was like absolutely my breaking free point. And then I went down to sit in the jungle with grandmother ayahuasca about, I think like 2 weeks later on my 20th birthday. And working with that plant even opened me up to my power and my belief in myself that much more. Then when I came back, I really started to say, no more bullshit. I'm gonna, I'm gonna honor this path that's calling me. And then I started to really step into my gifts as a healer, as an intuitive, that much more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the work you're doing right now. Tell me
Yeah.
all the things.
So
What do you got going on?
sometimes it's really hard to explain because there's so many tools that I use. Like I love to say I have so many tools in my medicine bag that I bring out intuitively when I work with other people. So I work one-on-one with clients. I host healing circles monthly where we get together and I'll do like shamanic journeying. I'll work with Mother Cacao as a plant ally or some other herbal medicines that I work with. I really just like one-on-one, if we're working or even in a larger group, I'll feel into the energy of what's really needed. And then given what the person is telling me about like their struggles or their blocks or their circumstances, I'll just take one of these tools out of my toolkit, which could be like a past life soul regression. It could be an energy clearing, whatever it is that I feel like is needed for that person in that moment. And then we just kind of dive right in. I usually work with people though, like at least for 6 months, because I feel like you do 1 or 2 or even 3 months of sessions, we're just peeling back the onion. And a lot of people that come to me are either like struggling with relationship, career, just really misalignment in their day-to-day life. And they know that there's so much more for them, but they don't really know how to access that or find clarity. And then I also work with a lot of people that are in their dark night of the soul moment. So kind of seeking like everything that they've known to be true is also not true anymore. But then they're like, okay, what do I do now? What do I do with this, this veil that has been lifted? And so I support people with that as well. So that's like one part of the work that I do. Mm-hmm. Again, I do so many things, but another thing that I really love to offer is medicine through creativity. So I'm a poet, a writer, a spoken word performer. So I really love the idea of supporting people and, myself, like getting out there, showing up, using your voice, using your story as medicine, as inspiration for other people. And a lot of people also want to know how to develop that confidence. So they'll come to me as well if they feel like they have a gift to share and they don't really, they have all these blocks that are preventing them from sharing it with the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love it. That's one of the things that I enjoy about you is there are a lot of us that are creative and visionaries have a lot of different tools in our tool belt and also a lot of different interests. And mm-hmm. I think sometimes we can be fed this idea that we're supposed to like fit neatly in this box to be successful or to be understood or to be like clear about who we are and what we do. And I like that you kind of lead with who you are versus like including all of those different things instead of, again, this sort of like box that says, if you have this problem, then I will give you this solution.
I'm sorry. It just reminds me of like, we are all multidimensional. We all have so many different layers and parts to us that we can't be put in a box. If we are put in a box, it's so limiting. And that's the deconditioning that I would do for myself, but for much of my community is like, there's so much more to you than you even know. And let's peel back the layers to find out what's really at your core. So then that part can be what you lead with and every day of your life. And I think like even in group work or in client work, just one-on-one, so many things can happen, but really what's missing is the integration part and like the structure. So a lot of these times, like we have these visions or these messages that come through, and it's like, well, what do we do with them? Well, that's kind of like that's the feminine creative flow coming through. It's like, let's put some masculine structure on that so you can actually make your dream happen in real life versus just have it be a dream for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree. And I find that a lot in this kind of work, especially for folks that are finding themselves in a place where in their life where they're sort of being propelled into their healing journey or awakening journey, and or with the increase in interest in plant medicines, what I find a lot of people do is they go away, they have this really big experience, and then when they come back, it's really hard to readjust to regular life, or it feels like or they make sometimes the work can give you like it looks really shiny at first.
Totally.
Which is tricky because it's both inspiring and that's part of like shaking things up, I think. But then at the same time, it's like, it's sort of like going away to grandma's house for the weekend. Where it's like so much fun, but then like, but now what?
Yeah.
So I appreciate you offering some of that bridge and support there too, because it's really important.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I love plant medicine, and I know many people are starting to utilize it. And I think, as I mentioned, I just graduated from Intertrek, which is Oregon's first psilocybin facilitation licensure program. And there's so many things that have to be set in order for that to actually go through in an integrity in a respectful way. So we'll see what happens with that. But even just working in alongside that community, there's so many people that are desiring support with plant medicine, not just the ceremonial piece, but again, like the integration. And I just find like it's 95% of the work is in integration. And so if you say you go, you end up going to Peru or Costa Rica or somewhere else to do a plant medicine journey, and you're needing support integrating that into your day-to-day life, I'm here to support you in that, because it's so nuanced and there's so much that happens that we can't understand, and sometimes we don't find the meaning for years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's powerful.
So tell me, you were saying you're out of the country right now.
Yes.
Partially, well, tell me a little bit about what you have going on in your life right now.
Yeah, so my partner and I actually put all of our stuff in storage in Portland, and now we're like on a spiritual pilgrimage down in Central and South America. I came down to Mexico first to get my practicum hours for my psilocybin facilitator licensure. So I had to come down here and do some practicum. And oh my gosh, it was the most powerful healing experience I've ever had. And I've sat in many mezen ceremonies, and it was the fire that reignited me in so many parts of my life. If we want to get in the story, we can maybe at a different time. But yeah, it was really powerful. So I started off this spiritual pilgrimage with like an initiation. And so now I've just been really kind of seeing where my services are in alignment to the communities that I'm traveling through. And so it's been a month in Mexico. I've met so many beautiful and wonderful people, feeling like I'm expanded in this place of being in service and being so assured with where I'm at and what I'm doing. And then we're going to be heading towards Peru next week to do a master plant dieta and really do more of the deeper work in the jungle, which is a dream I've always wanted to do. So I'm really excited to go there and meet grandmother ayahuasca again, who is a For those of you that don't know about ayahuasca, she's a feminine energy, and I call her grandmother, and I just have so much deep resonance for her, deep reverence for her, and deep gratitude for her. So to just go where she is the most potent in Peru is just such an honor and a blessing, and I'm excited to come back to my community after that with all the wisdom and medicine that I have to give from that journey. And I believe in working with healers who are doing the work themselves. And so for me, that's a huge part of my journey, is making sure I'm always continuing to do the work, even when it's so fucking challenging and uncomfortable. Which most of the time plant medicine is. So
Yeah, another thing, one of the things that you don't necessarily see when you get started on this journey is that, again, it can look pretty shiny, and it's always worth it. It's always so worth it.
yeah, I always say, like, this might not be true all the time, but I feel it to be true in my experience. Like, you must go through the darkness in order to uncover the light. And the darkness can be really scary at first, because for those of us or you that haven't really leaned into it, it can feel like you might be stuck there. You might not understand what the teachings are until you move through it. And then on the other side, there's this wisdom or medicine or revelation that comes that can ultimately better your life and give you more understanding as to why you're here. And, really, like, all the bigger questions, I feel like a lot of us have trouble finding answers to.
Mhm. Mhm. So you were saying, we didn't get into it, but you were saying you're kind of sitting on some stuff right now, or if you're grappling with things, but tell me a little bit about what you have going on.
Yeah, I mean, let me just like ground into myself here. Um, so what came through, and I'm gonna cry, and I love my sensitivity, so I'm just gonna allow that to be here. Welcome it in. Um, what's been challenging for me I would say this past like 9 months, is like really feeling connected to community and sisterhood. I have many sisters that I grew up with that I'm still very much close with, but in my day-to-day, and they're in other states and doing their own thing, so there's less, I feel like, physical closeness that I'm looking for, and deep intimacy with sisters that I'm feeling like I want. But yet sometimes I can feel like I have a hard time trusting sisterhood relationships, because in my partnership, we have so many touch points with each other. We see each other every day. If there's rupture that happens, we usually obviously find the time to repair and talk through. And I think with friendships, that can be a little bit more challenging, because we're not so close, all like in proximity all the time. And so something that came through in my last medicine journey was how I have a challenging time trusting the feminine because of my mother wounding, because I didn't feel the protection or the love or the nurturance from my mom that I needed to at such a young age. And so I saw that connection, and it's been really hard, because I feel like all I want is sister connection, but like it's really challenging, especially if I feel like I'm meeting other sisters, but that aren't necessarily ready to also do the work of rupture and repair, and like meet me in that conscious connection.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of this journey for me is like understanding where I'm getting in my own way of having that connection, but also what more can I do to show up as even a trusted sister myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's something that's been on my heart a lot lately.
Yeah, I feel you there for sure. Yeah. Um, I'll just name this piece too, that even even coming into, well, yeah, I'll be very transparent. Kind of testing and experimenting with having these conversations and these live like healing sessions that are transparent on the podcast. And part of me is excited about that, for the opportunity to like just tap into and connect to other people and just like show what the work is.
Mm-hmm.
And I have like a little bit of a conflict because on the one hand, I do want to show off. I do want to show like, again, what this work looks like and what I can do. And what I also don't want to do, because there's like the story that's like, oh, well, I mean, I think it's true. There's a story that you can, if you show up and you're really vulnerable, then that tends to like speak for itself and like call in people that want to work with you, which is true. But then on the other hand, what I don't really want to perpetuate is this thing where it's like, oh, come on the thing, and then I'll do a thing for you. And then that will show that I'm like somehow more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I see.
Yeah.
There's a power dynamic between practitioner and client, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Totally.
noticed that too, like on both ends of it. Like when I've had the experience of like coming into my power and showing up in my power and then triggering women around me, especially with like teachers sometimes that are like, once you start to like really progress and like feel it, then they start to get threatened and you can get into all kinds of crazy shit. Similar dynamic, we're talking about plant medicine where, and actually just being new, getting into like healing work in general, there's this place where sometimes when people come into the work and it's new to them, it's really exciting. It's like maybe mind blowing. And so you have this dynamic that on one hand, they're really excited, but they don't actually have the background or the expertise to be holding other people through medicine experiences. And also, just because you're new to it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be holding other people or that your training has to look like somebody else's training.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a conflict that I feel a lot too. And where I feel like I see more people kind of getting on their sort of high horse about who should or shouldn't be. There's part of me that really agrees with the like holding integrity around the thing. But I think if we're being honest, a lot of it is that they're afraid that they're going to lose their job, is essentially what's also happening.
Yeah.
And I can feel that way too.
Mm-hmm.
Even with the work, I mean, I've played around with one of the things that I kind of not joke about is like, I want to train people, like put me out of a job, you know?
Yeah,
There will
yeah.
be so many medicine people that
That nobody will go to you because there's 20,000 other practitioners they can choose from.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. Thank you so much for sharing that so honestly. And that's something I also think about too when I'm at more of a scarcity level. But when I feel like I'm at an abundance, trusting level, it's like you will still attract those people that are meant to work with you at that certain time, and that doesn't make you any less or more valuable than somebody else. And like, especially if you're on the healing journey, for me, I'll speak for myself, like I have many mentors and teachers that I see regularly, but there's a point where I hit a plateau where I feel like, okay, we've kind of done enough work that I think so now it's time to go to the next person. And then their flavor, their medicine is going to give me something different, right? Because we're all unique, even if we're all teaching the same thing, it's still unique to us. And I don't think that like spirit would give us all of these opportunities to serve if there wasn't enough people to serve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel like when I'm in my higher self, like trusting momentum. But I totally can agree and see that other side. There's so many nuances and complexities to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things that is happening also is, and this I think relates to a lot of the work that you do and you offer, is it's less about the tool and more about the practitioner. Actually, like it's less about that they do Reiki or that they work with plant medicines and more about that you have some medicine that I probably need.
Yeah, and honestly, number one is safety. If I feel safe with that practitioner and I feel like they're in integrity with the service that they're offering, because that's how I feel like what I embody, then I feel like free to kind of fall in and trust and surrender.
Mhm.
But sometimes, especially when we're talking about safety and trust, a lot of us have that wounding that takes a while to build with somebody, even a new practitioner, even somebody you may have been like following for a while. Like you have to feel that safety and trust in order to feel like you can be that much more vulnerable and that much more open. And then when you're that much more vulnerable and open, that's where a lot of like the big work can happen.
Mhm.
So I think normalizing that trust and safety takes time to build, just like it would in any relationship.
Mhm. Mhm. So I'm curious if you're comfortable sharing if some more specifics around where you're kind of experiencing the wound with the feminine.
Yeah, so this is gonna take me to get pretty vulnerable. Which in disclosure here, this is what's hard is because I know many of my friends are probably going to be listening to this podcast. And so I want to make a disclosure of like, don't think it's you that I'm talking about, essentially, because it most likely is not. But I've had some instances within the last year where I've met new friends where it feels like, again, there's some rupture, some disconnection that happens. And with sisters, especially, I feel like there's this, mm, maybe it's like lack of safety or lack of opportunity for repair. And so then we just kind of end up just going our separate ways and then we're like, all right, that's it. And like that is I mean, that's so wounding to me because I have the abandonment wound within me. And also it's like, when I feel like I try to show up, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, I definitely have avoidant tendencies myself. So I'm taking accountability for my end. But sometimes when I feel like I try to show up to be more secure or more forward of like, I'd like to give repair to this relationship, I feel like I'm not being met there. And then it feels like it just ends. And then I'm
Mhm.
just like, okay, what the fuck now? Like, all right, I can't control any of that. And so it's like, all right, that friendship feels like it's kind of over. And now I feel like I'm back to square one again. And I'm also understanding friends come and go in your life. They're not supposed to be permanent, but I think there's this just deep desire for sisterhood to feel much more grounded and connected than it has been for me for the past couple of years.
Mhm. Mhm.
Does that all kind of make sense? And I can give more detail if needed.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Um, I'm gonna just feel for a second here. So when you're talking, I don't know that this will mean anything, but when you're talking, what I see or feel is sort of like I see like your 11-year-old almost like up on this little mound, like kind of warrior-esque.
Mm.
Um, makes me think of that game, like take
Zelda?
yeah, yeah, totally, totally. Um, yeah, and it feels like there is like this fine line that she's exploring.
Mm.
Well, it feels like what it feels like to me actually is like she's on the line. And if she takes a step to one side, then it's like disempowering to herself. And if she takes a step on the other side, then it's like sort of like over, she kind of gets into like proving or like demonstration or like trying to like, yeah, demonstrate a thing. So it's like, ooh, that's a really narrow place to be standing on. Um, So I wonder, let's just kind of look at that a little closer and see what's true. And also, I mean, I feel this way often as well.
Mhm.
Um, so let's look on the side where if she takes a step, it feels like disempowerment. Um, I'll just have you name whatever is coming up for you here, what you notice.
Yeah, like people pleasing. Not like not honoring like my needs or boundaries in order to just keep the peace. It was like that's what feels feeling overly responsible for somebody else's reaction.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, it feels like self-abandonment, like not showing up for myself in order to appease another.
Mhm. And what feels unsafe about that?
Oh, um, like there's this taking advantage of, or yeah, it feels like this taking advantage of. And then I lose connection to myself and my truth and my path in order to keep connection or the peace and to keep somebody else comfortable,
Mhm.
which I get lost at sea.
Let me feel for a second here because I feel like there's almost like this disorientation here. Um,
As I'm even talking, I feel it in my throat chakra.
mhm. Yeah, what I'm experiencing, I'll just keep naming this and we'll just keep playing. What I'm experiencing is like the thought of, yeah, it's like I have to make sure I don't fall over this line because if I fall over this line, what I see is like this like whirlwind. It's almost like this like sucking or pulling.
Mhm.
And so I guess what my question is that true?
Mm. I think there's a part of me that wants to say no. And then there's also a part of me that wants to say yes.
Hmm. Um, we don't have to go here if you don't want, but I feel like there's like a little one in you that's like pointing directly at a thing.
Mm.
And I wonder if you're available to speak it.
Can you give me a little bit more context?
Hmm.
It's okay if there's like, you know, hard.
Yep. Um, I see her. Um, okay, I see her crying and pointing at another girl for sure.
Mm.
She seems younger than 11 for sure.
Mm. Well, I know a lot of my distrust with feminine energy comes from my mom, but also comes from my sister.
Hmm.
Uh, as a little one, she she is 18 years older than me, and there's a lot of feeling less than her and being told I was less than her. And she was very manipulative and um, yeah, I gave over my power a lot to her as a young girl. So I think there's that fear present
Mm-hmm.
of like giving power over to somebody.
Um, what power?
Mm. Mm. I think just like my authentic power. Um, like again, there's this like mm, feeling like being played around or toyed with or and like I'm not grounded and present enough in myself to say no or to stick up for myself. I just kind of give over to what the other person wants because it's easier and it's also familiar.
Mm-hmm. And then that, and also that feels unsafe.
For sure.
It's interesting here because I mean, I'm sure you deal with, I'm sure you look at this with clients all the time too.
Mhm.
And so it's interesting to me because like my story or tendency or what like my normal go-to would be is to like, oh, we take the power back and like you stand in your boundaries and see that it's safe to do that and all these things. Um, or like playing around with like she is older. I mean, it's not okay for her to mistreat you, but she also does know more.
Mhm.
And I'm just curious what it would be like to lean into that.
The challenging part is that a lot of it was actually like manipulation and not trusting.
Mm-hmm.
It came from it came from a non-benevolent place. Um, and it's hard without sharing her history and her story and but it's very much like more of an abusive place.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So it's like a hard no.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I have been noticing is like a series of interactions um where it's like two people will actually be like living kind of in like different realities
Mm.
and then they meet and there's a place where my tendency is to want to like because I can see all the sides is to want us to get into agreement about what we're seeing, like where
Mhm.
can we meet in agreement with what we're seeing.
Mhm.
And what I'm starting to wonder is if those scenarios are actually for us to see, like drop into the depth of our knowing of what our experience is and what the other person is doing and actually just not change.
Mm. I love that. I would just for my own feeling into it, and maybe for those listening, can you give an example of that? If it's
Yeah, I'll join you. Yeah, okay. This is vulnerable too, because there might be people listening that are gonna know the reference. So yeah, I had an experience with a teacher that I just love. And we got to this little weird spot where I was seeing a thing and experiencing something. And she was, I feel like I started to wake up to some, probably unintentional abuse.
Mm.
I don't think she was like, how can I get these people, But I started to wake up to some subtle gaslighting that I think came from not being able to receive some feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, didn't handle it the best way on my end. So I can also take some ownership for that there. Um Everything in me, and also I can see her perspective. I can see like where she was coming from, how she was viewing me, and I just
Mm-hmm.
don't agree. I don't agree that that's what was happening. But I can totally see how she would think that it is what was happening. Um, so for me, it's like my habit would be, can we talk this out? Let's work this out. So that because I can see your side, and actually what I want is for you to see my side.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what I think the medicine from that situation, I think for me was to actually be like, no, I don't actually agree with this. And I'm not changing right now.
I really needed to hear that. I really, really needed to hear that because that feels so fucking resonant in my truth too. Like, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it just feels like walking away or putting that hard no is it is might not feel good, but it's also the best thing maybe for that relationship or for the medicine to, to come through. I don't know, but that fucking feels exactly like what just happened to me recently.
Mm-hmm.
Buddy.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a place for that where I'm at with it is like I could definitely see a pattern with me where I still this is what the line actually feels like to me that maybe is similar here. There's part of me that is like occasionally goes into the no and fuck you. A lot of me that's like the no with compassion, like the no, but I love you. And also, this is just what it is.
Mhm.
And then another part of me, maybe that people pleasing side that wants to throw myself in front of her and be like, I did the bad thing. What did I do wrong? And my distortion is that if I get all the way vulnerable and like I like over basically take more responsibility for myself than is actually required, that she would meet me there. But actually, then that flips all the way to the other side of the line, where then when that happens, then she can be like, haha, see,
Yeah.
I've
It was
been
all
waiting
you.
for this. I've been waiting
Exactly.
for you to see,
Right.
which makes
Right.
this standstill because then it's like, well, I'm not going to fucking do that either. I don't want to give you
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really honest and really challenging, but also, again, like you share, this is why I love when we can be vulnerable to share these stories, even when it's fucking uncomfortable, is because that was medicine to me to feel like I can breathe now. I can just like walk away in peace with knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then, um, I'm playing with two things here. So I'm going to toss them out to you.
Yeah.
I want to play. Do you still have time?
Oh, I have all the time. Yeah.
Okay. I want to either play with, I'm curious about the other side of the line where it's the like demonstrating, proving.
Mhm.
So I'm curious about exploring that. And then the other thing I'm playing around with is swapping here and having you ask me some questions and offer
Okay.
some seeing.
Okay. Woo, that second one gives me. Heart palpitations. Um, fuck. Okay. Let me just, can I just like sit in this
Yeah,
for a second?
totally,
Yeah.
totally.
Mm. The safe route would be to go on the other side of the line, and the uncomfortable route, but maybe more empowering route would be to ask you some questions. So I think let's do that.
Okay.
And if it's not, yeah, I just trust myself, right? Trust myself. Hmm. I'm also curious if we want to continue with the same topic or if you'd like to share something different that may be present.
That's a good question. Um, okay, I'll share this. Um, I feel like I'm a fairly outspoken person, and I'm really starting to see that I am being very tame with my voice.
Mm.
I think there was a large part of my life I was like, as a teenager, I was like super radical, um, and kind of rebellious and very like in your face with my opinions and beliefs. And I think that I have made that part of me very wrong.
Mm.
Um, Probably for a lot of different reasons. And so I'm just starting to realize that she's wanting to come out more. And hmm, I don't know what the fuck she's gonna say. I guess I'm afraid she's going to be too in your face or like too aggressive. I'm trying to tame how her I'm noticing I'm trying to tame how her messages come out. What am I asking here? How do I use my voice so that it's true to me and true to what I see? Because I think that I see some really important things, um, without, I don't know, worry about. I don't know if it's offending people. It's not really offending people. I guess it's the backlash
Mm. The backlash that you receive from sharing your truth.
from people that I maybe respect.
Mm.
It's less about just like general, because I've gone through a lot of this work where it's like, I know where I am,
Mm.
that if some people don't see that, understand that, it doesn't bother me. But I guess this is the other side of the line. If it's coming from where I see as being above, further down the road than me, more of a authority or someone I really respect, that makes me uncomfortable.
Mhm. What's uncomfortable about that?
Hmm. Hmm. It feels, I'm afraid that it will look like I'm trying to attack them.
Mm.
But what I really want to do is just like open up this new way.
Mm. Mhm.
And I'm afraid that it will look like, um, yeah, I guess like I'm trying to tear them down to make room for myself.
Mm. Now I can ask you that question. Do you feel like that is true in your heart,
Hmm.
in your body?
Let me actually sit with it before I jump to that answer. No, that's not true.
What is true?
That I know some things. I'm feeling my mom a lot in this moment here.
Mhm. I was feeling that as well for you.
Yep. She is lovely, and it was really important for her not to sort of like start any fires anywhere.
So you knowing these things that you feel within to share, what do you think the result of you sharing these things out into the world would be? What's your why?
Hmm. The result, I think, is that I will be more aligned and more on track. I actually think in this moment, what it feels like is that I'm walking right beside the line I'm supposed to be on.
Mhm.
Whew. And I guess what's scary about it for me is like, well, specifically, some of it, a lot of it is in the plant medicine and psychedelic world. Um, and I'm getting more direct about it. We touched on that a little bit earlier, and it's kind of tricky to navigate too because there's legalities and all kinds of
Mhm.
different complexities there.
Yeah.
I've also been working there for a long time.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it excites me. But I'm also like, who will I be if that's what I'm doing?
Mm. Something that's coming to my mind to share with you, that came up from a fellow practitioner a couple weeks ago. She talked about calling people out versus calling people in.
Mm-hmm.
And so the calling people out can feel like maybe there's this attack or there's all this aggressive energy that also in a way might not, depending on how you are, might feel good to share, but also may feel mm, like too much. I don't know your way of expressing versus calling people in. And again, it's not taming your experience or disempowering your experience, but it's more of a way to just shine light on what you've experienced. And that can be your truth versus what their truth is. It doesn't mean that you're wrong and they're right, you're wrong. It just you really sharing what your experiences and your perceptions and that's your truth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's welcome.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting now that you're sharing that. Like, isn't it the same both sides of the line? Yeah.
I can like feel that in my gut right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, what I'd like us maybe both to do in this moment is the invitation, I guess, is to just, and you can play with me here too, um, give ourselves some more space on this line that we're standing on.
Definitely. Mm. I can like energetically feel that spaciousness opening.
Mhm.
It also brings in compassion for me of like if I can give myself space on this line, then maybe I can give others space on this line too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of ending that game of stepping into somebody else's lane.
Yeah. And again, I think as long as we continue to check in and be in integrity with where we are and what our lane is, there's no stepping over or pushing over. There's just who we are on our path and everybody else on their path. And it doesn't look the same, and it's not supposed to look the same. And again, that truth within, as long as we're being guided from that place, I feel that that's all that really matters.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to know what that place is, though, for ourselves. And we have to be really honest with ourselves of what that place is and when we're outside of that place, too.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. How does that feel?
Good. I just want to say thank you.
Thanks for meeting me here.
Yeah, thank you. It's such a pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, I feel like that's complete. Does that feel complete to you?
Yeah, it feels complete to me. Definitely.
Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for meeting me here, Christine Marie, for the work you're offering in the world, for your willingness to play. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for holding the container, inviting me in, and being safe enough to explore with me. I know how sometimes intimidating that can be. So, yeah, again, just a deep honor and deep blessing to be here sharing this space with you. It feels even like the space between you and I on this call like feels really sacred. That's how it feels to me. And so I will be doing a lot of integration work after this call. And
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Happy to call you a sister.
Same.
That's okay.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Well, for everyone who's listening, you can find, I'll be sharing all of Christine Marie's info and offers on the show notes. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they're interested in working with you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Christine Marie Heals or through my website, which is the same thing.com, or through email, which is the same thing at gmail.com. So it's pretty easy. Also, one thing I want to share that I didn't get to is that I have a community membership where we come together every month and we talk about a topic and we do some deep work into exploring where we're out of alignment with ourselves and coming back home to our truth. And it's a really beautiful community so far. So it's low cost but high value. So if you're interested in joining that membership, I'd love to welcome you all in. That feels aligned. So reach out to me and we'll get on a call and see if it's a fit. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Have you been hearing the call to expand your spiritual gifts and step into your next level of conscious leadership? If you're a coach, healer, or a spiritual leader, you can learn more about Shaman School and growing your spiritual business on our website, holtonhealingarts.com, or send me a DM at Holton Healing Arts. Welcome to today's Member Query episode, where we explore questions about spiritual paths, intuitive gifts, growing a spiritual business, and shamanism. Do you have a question for us? Send us a DM at Holton Healing Arts. from a Leading with Spirit Facebook group member. The question is, how do I grow my powers? And I want to debunk a common myth here. A lot of times people will ask me how they can activate it or unlock it. How do I unlock my gifts? Or you'll see that rhetoric around is like, unlock your spiritual gifts. And actually, there's nothing hidden or nothing that needs to come to the surface that isn't already there. You always have access to all of your spiritual gifts. They're always present. It's not that they become unlocked. It's that you see them. And the way that you see them where you didn't see them before is to be around other people who are also using their gifts. It's actually super easy and super fast that way. That's how you do it. It's less about reading about the steps and how-tos and more about just being in the presence of other people that use those gifts. If there's a gift or an ability that you're kind of interested in learning how to do, then you should find somebody who does that and hang out with them. That's how you grow those gifts. That's how you grow those powers. The second part of this is once you begin to see them and see where they are, the next stage to really like grow them, to master them is being able to trust them. And the way you do that is by evaluating it over a long period of time. So like a lot of us are kind of, especially in America, have been trained to get these quick fixes or to get fast results. And it's like one of those counterintuitive things that if you want fast results, you need to stretch out the period of time where you're going to grow them. Like if you give yourself lots of time to grow them, then you're less likely to stop and check every time and see if it worked or not, which actually allows you to grow them much faster than you would if you try to do something really fast and then believe that you failed. Instead, when you stretch it out over a period of time, you get to see like sometimes you're going to miss. It's just like learning how to shoot hoops. Sometimes you're probably not going to make it on your first shot. And just because you miss once in a while doesn't mean you're not really, really good at it. So give yourself time and space. This for sure will help you grow your gifts much faster. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Leading with Spirit. If you did, please share the link for this episode with your biggest takeaway, tagging me at Holton Healing Arts. It would also support me if you subscribed and left a rating and review of the show so we can support more people living their highest purpose. Until next time, journey on.